Zafra Publishing presents The Helicopter Heist, written by Jonas Bonnier and read by Tom Lawrence. Author's Note: This book is a novel based on true events. The author has, in other words, taken the real, the documented, the observed, and the recounted as a starting point, and let his imagination take over, fill in, expand. Certain locations and names have been changed. Certain situations have been added, while others have been taken away, and in such cases, any similarities with reality are coincidental. December 2008. 1. Hunched over his walking stick, the old man came out of the woods. The road was nothing more than a couple of overgrown tyre tracks. He was wearing a pair of black rubber boots bought at Coop Forum in Harlan a few weeks earlier, and a dark brown raincoat from Tempo in Feltoversten. He wasn't much of a man for buying clothes. He never had been. The ground was still free from snow, but the frost had the trees and bushes in its iron grip. It was a genuinely cold day at last, and perhaps the snow would arrive that evening. In the icy woods, where the trees' dark green needles were the brightest colour in an otherwise greyish-brown palette, a black dog appeared up ahead of the man. A Labrador retriever. The dog studied its owner, lowered its nose to the ground and ran off. A few yards later, 3 more black dogs came running, all the same breed and size. They crossed the track and vanished into the bushes on the other side. The old man followed them. He could hear the rest of the pack behind him, 3 bitches and a male, wandering back and forth over frozen sprigs of blueberries and thickets of ferns. They were on their way home. The man lived in a dark red cottage just south of Landfjärden, roughly halfway between Nynäshamn and Stockholm. Through the thick forest outside his kitchen window, he could see over to the island of Muska during the winter. It was only a few hundred yards from his gate to the water's edge, and there were plenty of spots for his dogs to splash about during spring and summer. Labradors were a breed with webbed toes, after all, bred for retrieving things from the water. The 8 adult dogs lived with the man in the main cottage, and the 2 outhouses were for the litters of puppies. He had been breeding Labradors for almost 20 years, and preferred dogs to people. That was why he lived in the cottage in the woods. Since there was neither mains water nor reliable electricity in the area, he was left to his own devices. His neighbours kept their distance, the closest living in the urban development that started 12 or so miles to the south. The man had gone to meet the buyers himself during the first few years, but he had always lost his temper when the fat old ladies asked whether the dogs needed a lot of exercise, and when the spoilt young kids pulled on the puppy's ears. And when he lost his temper, he had raised his voice and slapped away the children's snotty hands. It had never been God's plan for him to be a salesman. These days he had help. People from other kennels displayed the puppies and young dogs for him. They even looked after the business side of things, and took all the credit. Not that the old man cared. When he returned home from his morning walk, it was just before 9. His cottage consisted of 3 rooms and 1 kitchen. Since the dogs always brought half the forest back into the house with them, and the old man had been having back trouble for the past few years, there wasn't much point in cleaning. He didn't let the dogs into the kitchen, meaning it was the only room that had some kind of order to it. He turned on the coffee machine. He was expecting company. He knew them well enough to be sure they would turn up when he asked them to come. He assumed they were afraid of him, and they wouldn't be the only ones. Sami Farhan was first to arrive. The old man saw him approaching along the path from the main road. The bus from Västerhaninge to Nynäshamn stopped up on the 73, and the cottage wasn't much more than 10 minutes into the woods. It had been years.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?